What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a route that all wide receivers need to learn. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it can teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback and would like to train with us this offseason, we're going to be traveling out to 10 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to the DMV area. That camp is completely sold out. But then we'll be heading out to St. Louis, Missouri, where we only have 3 spots remaining, then Honolulu, Hawaii, Boston, Massachusetts, Cleveland, Ohio, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles. So if you guys want some more information, how you can sign up for one of our camps if we're coming to a city near you, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out. Let's get started with this video. So now, we're going to be talking about 5 different ways that you guys can run a dig route. So a dig route, these are going to be against some of the harder looks from a defensive perspective. It's not going to be like against zone. It's going to be against defensive looks where the guy is right in your way. It's an awkward route. How can I create separation? So first situation here is we have inside shade off man coverage where the DB is sitting at about 9 to 10 yards off and you have to run a dig at about 10 yards. So what should you do, right? So number one thing when we come up to the line as a wide receiver is we have to identify a pre-snap look. We have to have a pre-snap process. So first part of the pre-snap process is I need to identify the DB's leverage. So he's inside shade. That tells me a few things. That tells me that he doesn't have any help to the inside. He's trying to force me to the outside, and his sole purpose is to not let me run an inside route. Don't let me run a dig or a post. Second thing in my pre-snap process, how close or how far is he? He's about 8 to 9 yards off, and then his eyes are going to be on me. That dictates what the coverage is. So it's inside shade, 7 to 8 yards off man, and it's man coverage. Those are the things we want to look for in our pre-snap process. So that is how I pick what type of move, how I'm going to structure my route, and how I can create separation. So this is a great example of a wide receiver doing a good stem to set up the attack of the outside shoulder of this DB. So anytime that you have to run an inside breaking route versus inside shade off man, the mistake that wide receivers will make is that they will just stem to the inside and try to square up the DB, essentially attack his midline. So a midline is like the imaginary line that goes down the middle of a DB's body or anybody's body, right? So guys will be taught, oh, you want to stem him up and square him up so he starts backpedaling. But you got to remember, against a disciplined DB, that's not what he's going to do. His sole purpose is to do what? An inside leverage. To protect the inside, right? So if you stem him and you attack his leverage, he's going to keep his leverage. He's going to do something called a weave. Now, in one-on-ones, what a lot of wide receivers will do is they'll stem to the inside, this DB will weave, and then they just cut off in front of him, but they end up catching the ball in like the opposite hash. In a real game, that will never work. You have other receivers on the field running other routes. You're going to run into them and screw up spacing on the play. So to maintain spacing, when you have an inside breaking route like a dig versus inside shade off man, we want to threaten the outside shoulder of the DB. Because remember, it's still man coverage, and in man coverage, what does a DB not want to get beat on? A fade, and that goes for any type of coverage. Man coverage press, off man coverage zone, they don't want to get beat deep. So if I can threaten his outside shoulder with a deeper route, with maybe a level change, with maybe a tempo change, that is what's going to get me separation underneath. But I have to sell the movement. So what this wide receiver does, he stems him to the inside to start, making it look like a fade route or some kind of outside breaking route. I'm totally fine with you guys doing this initially because it looks like something else. All great wide receivers can pair their routes together. If you had to run something like, let's say it was a fade ball, right? Let's say you had to run a fade and you had inside shade off man. You wouldn't just take off and go run to the outside, right? You would stem to the inside, threaten his leverage, then work to the outside. So that's what we want to make it look like. So this wide receiver stems to the inside, gives him a little hesitation move, and then throws a cut to the outside. Sells with his hips, sells with his shoulders, has some speed to the cut, and that's what can get that DB to jump to the outside and create separation for us on this dig. Now, again, we want to make it look like we're threatening his outside shoulder. Because again, still, he doesn't have any help to the outside. His help is the sideline. But his sole purpose, do not give up the inside route. But DBs are still human. They do not want to get beat deep. And if we can make that route look like a fade, attack his outside shoulder, that sets me up for separation, but that also helps me keep spacing on the play. I'm not running into other wide receivers on the field. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job here by Cook, being patient, throwing that move to the outside, and then getting that space on that dig. Okay, so now, second look here we're going to talk about, and this is a look that so many guys struggle with, and this is going to be a dig route versus inside shade press coverage. So honestly, fellas, when you come up to the line and you see inside shade press, nothing should really change in terms of your pre-snap process and what this information tells to you. The only thing that's different is that he's a little bit closer than the last example. Now, I come up to the line, inside shade, press coverage, and again, maybe a yard, less than a yard off away from me. So I know with my route, this DB is trying to take away the inside. So if my plan of action is, I'm going to set him up with a fake outside and then take the inside release and then break off. This DB, if he's disciplined, will probably not give up the inside release. He is taught protect the inside. So as a wide receiver, I have to get very, very comfortable taking an outside release when on an inside breaking route, whenever that DB's inside shade press. So let's watch how this wide receiver plays it. He attacks his leverage, takes the outside release, fights the hands, and gives a great rocker step move at the top of the break. So on a dig route, there are a couple different ways that you can get separation at the top of the route on a dig route when it's press. And that's what we're going to talk about in this clip. But let's go back to the very beginning. When this DB's inside shade, we obviously want to try to hold him to the inside. Take what we give to the outside. So this wide receiver comes off the line, gives a move that threatens his leverage. And honestly, I don't need to break this DB's ankles. My separation does not come off the line. My separation happens at the top of the route. But I just want to get him to hold there. Let's hold him to the inside so I can take a free outside release and keep timing with my quarterback. At the end of the day, all wide receivers have to play fast. So if you're trying to force releases, try to cross his face, this DB is going to stay patient. He's going to reroute you across the field. And again, just like the last example, when we force a route to the leverage, that screws up spacing and that could screw up timing. We need to keep timing and spacing with my release. So he takes this outside release, right? Now, everybody's biggest fear on an outside release with a DB who's inside shade, especially when it's an inside route, what if this DB plays it well? What if he's right on my hip, coach, and I get to the break point and he's right there. He's right on my hip. I can't break this thing off over the top. What do? You need to have a plan. At the top of the route, it should be a reaction. It should be something that you've repped out over and over and over again so you can apply it in a live game situation like this. So this DB's right on your hip. What could you do? You could take your inside arm, you put it on the back of his shoulder, back of his hip, and swap by and slip underneath him. Do something called a throw-by technique. Now, obviously, if the throw-by is only something we use if we need to use it. If we can get over the top and stack him, that is when I could have some more fun at the top of this break. I could use a rocker step like this wide receiver does, which is an inside move, then an outside fake to get that DB to jump, and that creates me separation. I could give like just a hard cut to the outside, but the plan should be to restack. The reaction should be to throw by. But it all comes from taking what that DB gives me. If you guys can do that, that's going to make you unguardable. You have to get comfortable with these uncomfortable route running situations. Now, one other thing, because there's many different ways to run a dig route, right? You could do this rocker step. You could do a single cut. I've seen some guys do like a square cut where they go 1-2 at the break point where they almost round it off. And then I've seen some guys snap down where they drop their hips. Now, when you stack this DB, why would it be bad to drop your hips? Because he would just run right into you, fellas. You have to have a plan. But against man coverage, we're probably not going to snap down unless he's right on my hip and I have to throw him by. So that might seem like a lot of info. But like I said, at the end of the day, we have to play fast as wide receivers. And this is something that you need to rep out in your head over and over and over again so it becomes an automated habit when you step foot onto that field. So let's play this again full speed, and then we're going to get to some more difficult looks here from these different DB coverages. So now next example I want to show here is a DB who's lined up in like outside shade press, and he is going to be running, again, a dig route. So, and this doesn't look quite like outside shade. It kind of looks like head-up coverage, but this DB disguises it. Like, he makes it look like head-up press, but on the snap, he jumps to the outside to protect the outside, okay? So I'm going to play it full speed, and then we're going to break down this move. So this wide receiver gives a move outside, takes the inside release, and he does something called a fake throw-by move. So a fake throw-by is one of the best ways to get separation on a dig when you take an inside release, okay? So now, DB, wide receiver, has his split cut down. Maybe he's a slot. Maybe he's an outside wide receiver. Here are the numbers, and he cut his split down, which means lining up closer to the lineman. So a smart DB will probably think, in a one-on-one man coverage scenario, why would a wide receiver cut his split down to run to the inside? Unless it's maybe like a drag route, right? But as a wide receiver, we know we could probably run a dig. We could probably run a post as well. And that might be offensively something that we're trying to disguise. So a smart DB might give you an outside shade press look to take away the outside route. Usually wide receivers will cut their split down to run that out, to run that corner, to maybe run like a slot fade if you're out of the slot. So smart DB is going to take it away. So as a wide receiver, my thought process is I'm going to attack his leverage to the outside, threaten him where he doesn't want me to go. Outside shade DBs want to take away the outside. So we threaten him to the outside, get him to hold his leverage, and we take the inside release. Now, there's a couple different ways that we could play this. Simple terms, if this DB's right on your hip, and again, we talk about in the last clip, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan of action because top of the route is where we get separation. That at that break point, you could use your body and you could lean into this DB. You lean into him, that at the break point, you could just make a hard single cut with your left foot and break off. Other thing you could do, very similar to when you guys took that dig or when you guys ran that dig with the outside release, we could work to stack him. I stack him over the top. I give him a quick rocker step, a head fake outside, and then run the dig. Or a more advanced version is doing something like this fake throw by. So we have this fake throw by move. We break down and we are trying to make it look like what? An out route. Because again, when we have an out route, very similar to the dig versus inside shade press, when we have to run a 10-yard out versus outside shade press, and I got a DB who's right on my hip, how would I run this route? I would put my hand on his shoulder, his hip, and I would slip under to run the out route, giving my quarterback space, just like how on the dig, I don't want to screw up spacing on the route. So I take what the DB gives me. I take the outside release when he's inside shade press, regardless of the route. So that's what I'm trying to make this dig look like. We break down at the top of the route here. We snap down. We give a little head fake to that blind spot, make him think we're putting the brakes on to slip under. That gets the DB to hesitate, and that's what can create a separation over the middle. Now, that move takes a little while, right? So I don't recommend that if you're running a dig and you're like a first read. Like, so if you're like a first read dig and it's like the quarterback's looking to you first, like let's say you're on the outside, you have to run a dig and the slot wide receivers may be running a whip route, I probably wouldn't use that. I would use something a little bit faster. But maybe let's say you're running a dig and you're like backside on a play. Like let's say the quarterback is working a passing concept to the right and he's coming back to you late. That's when I would work that move at the top. Because again, it takes a little while. You have some more time to get across that field, okay? So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. A great move to use when you have a DB, again, who is an outside shade press, is that fake throw-by move. Great job there by this wide receiver using that to create that space. Okay, so now, next example here is going to be outside leverage coverage. You got to run a dig, and he's about maybe, I would say like 4 yards away, outside shade. So again, pre-snap process, we come up to the line. We have to identify 3 things. What's his leverage? We have to identify how close or how far he is and what type of coverage is it. So he's outside leverage. That tells me that he's trying to prevent the outside route and he probably has some kind of help to the inside. Now, this is something that I didn't address in the last example because I wanted to address it in this one. Whenever a DB's outside leverage, he probably has help to the inside. Because when it's man to man, because that's what we identify, because his eyes are on us, he's in a squared up stance, it's man. Why would he let me just take off and go run if there wasn't some kind of help to the middle? Just like when a DB's lined up inside shade press, why would he let me go take off and run if he didn't have help? But the sideline is his help. So he's not just going to let me run free. So that's why it's super important that with your release, when we attack this DB's leverage, just like when he's in press, we don't just run away from it. We get vertical. We try to stack. We try to lean into him. We use a fake throw by. So that creates a bigger window or even just a normal size window between the defender and that safety. And that makes it a very, very easy throw for my quarterback. So I just want to make sure that I address that. So let's play this full speed, what this wide receiver does. He closes the space, stays skinny, gives a move, and then is able to win on that dig route over the middle. So this is textbook as to how you want to run it. Anytime you got a DB who has some kind of cushion, and by cushion, I mean 4 yards of space, whether he's outside leverage, whether he's inside leverage, I want to close that cushion. Let's close that distance. Let's take that line of scrimmage and let's bring that line of scrimmage to this DB. So that's what this wide receiver does. He closes the space, he attacks his leverage to the outside, and look what that DB does. He holds his leverage to the outside. Same thing we've been talking about in this entire video. His responsibility is to protect the outside. So we attack the outside, I guarantee you he is going to hold the outside. So we attack him, we give him a move, then we break to the inside. But you see how this wide receiver doesn't run away. he gets to his plan. Remember, the plan, whenever it's man, is always to stack. If I can't stack, that's when I react. So he gets to the top, he stays skinny, he stays hip to hip with him so he doesn't just go run into a safety look, and now he could use that rocker step at the top. Get that DB outside, maybe draw a holding call a little bit and create space over the middle. But he created a window. He didn't just go run to that safety help, he created a window because he attacked the leverage, he stayed skinny, and worked to stack. So remember, fellas, your pre-snap process dictates how you can keep spacing and timing. Your move at the top of the route is what will get you open and get you more receptions. So that's a way how you can run a dig versus that outside leverage coverage when he's maybe about 4 to 5 yards off. Close that space, threaten that leverage, and let's get back to the top of this route. Okay, so now I just wanted to talk about this example. This is very similar to the first example we did, but this is inside shade man coverage. DB's maybe about 3 yards off. And so I just wanted to show this to showcase how you can close space again, even when it's the opposite way. So this should be a pretty easy one for you guys. If I showed you this look and asked you how to run a dig, and he's inside shade, would you say square him up, give him a fake outside, and take the inside release? No, you would say, I'm going to attack his leverage, hold him inside, and take the outside release, and my goal should be to stack or throw him by. But remember, with my release, what do I have to do when there's cushion? I have to close the cushion. I have to get into his leverage, and so I could get skinny on the outside release and be able to win on that dig route over the top. So make sure, fellas, like we said in the last 2 examples, if there's cushion, we can't just give a jab and then try to run away. That gives the DB the easy angle to get into my hip and squeeze me to that sideline or make it very difficult on me to get open. I have to close the space with him. We want to stay skinny so we could get over the top and I could win on that route. Let's play this again full speed, so make sure. Anytime we have to run a dig or any route for that matter, and there's space, there's cushion, let's close that cushion. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come train with us in 10 more states this offseason, we are going to be coming out to the DMV area. That camp is sold out, but our last camp will be in Los Angeles, California. So if you're local to any one of these cities, we'd love to have you out. Check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.